The second is basically looking at all financial limits in the policy. The most important financial limit in a policy is called a room rent limit, right? A room rent limit can actually completely dilute your policy if you have a very stringent cap on your policy. Because what happens is that when you have a room rent cap, all the other expenses are also proportionately deducted based on that, right? So let's say if I have a private room cap and because of, let's say during COVID, this happened that private rooms are not available and you had to take deluxe room or even higher rooms, then the insurance company will look at the difference between that room and the cost of the two and then proportionately deduct the entire claim by that amount. So if the difference is 50%, then your claim will be deducted by 50%. So it becomes very important. The third is basically treatment caps. So insurance companies can have caps on treatment related, like for example, there could be a cap on how much you can charge, how much you can claim for cataract or how much you can claim for cancer. So you should understand that.
Folks, welcome to Paisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And on today's episode, I'm thrilled as always to welcome back Mahavir Chopra, founder, CEO of Beshak. We're going to talk about insurance and a lot more about insurance. So folks, if you're listening to this episode of Paisa for the very first time, Mahavir Chopra was our very first guest back in 2017, 7 years ago, when we switched format from a monologue to a dialogue. Mahavir was the first guest at that point of time. He's been on our show regularly, but the last time was 2 years ago. So he's not been there on our show. So Mahavir, welcome back. Thank you so much for doing this for PaisaVaisa.
It's always great to be here.
It's always great to have you here. What's been happening at Beshak? I mean, you're here after 2 years. At that point of time, Beshak was something else. Today, it's something else. I think if there's someone on this show who's listening or watching this for the very first time, tell us what Beshak is and your journey. It's been 4 years already.
Right.
Go for it.
Absolutely. So it's actually been a crazy roller coaster ride, right? We went on to make something which never existed in the world. I remember meeting you in the Starbucks, Linking Road wala Starbucks, and what I saw when I showed you the deck that I had made, obviously it was a very, very early days of what we were thinking about. And your immediate reaction, you being the blunt that you are, was that ये एक startup नहीं, ये 4 startup है. And while I was traveling home, I said that, yeah, ये शायद है, but हम करेंगे ये, right? And actually that proved out to be a lot true, right? Meaning because what we ended up making, right, which took a lot of time because of it being 2-3 startups actually, was that one is that we wanted to build an independent kind of a platform which does not have any link-ups with any insurance companies in terms of what kind of content we create, which basically helps us to be completely uninfluenced by what we want to put out there and how we want to help customers understand insurance. That in itself was a big challenge, obviously, because you basically leaving money on the table from the biggest and the most important player in the industry, which is the insurance company, in itself was a big challenge. The other was basically creating a community of advisors, right? And a lot of people felt that ऐसे advisors है ही नहीं. There are no such advisors available who are credible, great advisors who you can trust and depend upon. So it took a while for us to be able to figure out and find such great advisors and then fuse this into one solution. It took a while. It was quite hard actually to be able to explain customers what we are doing.
And of course, starting just at the pandemic lockdown?
Yeah. We just started 15 days before the pandemic, not obviously realizing that the pandemic will hit us. And yeah, we started with a lot of bang. With at least 6-7 people from my previous companies that I worked with who were going to join us. But finally, we held all of them. We told all of them to be where they are. And just 2 of us basically started the company at that time. So far, the product has matured a lot now. So we see great response now from customers. I see a good movement in what in the startup world is called the flywheel, right? हम देख रहे हैं now that customers are coming on their own. Customers are talking about us a lot on social media. A lot of advisors are reaching out to us basically to be a part of the community. So overall, the whole trigger of this was that while I was building multiple distribution startups in the past, I never received great testimonials and positive feedback saying that, wow, what you're doing is great. This is the first startup in my 20 years of running with startups that we receive really beautiful testimonials from customers saying that, you have really impacted our life. So that's honestly the biggest and most rewarding thing that a founder can get. And that's why it's been a rewarding experience. Obviously a tough one, but very rewarding.
So I remember that meeting because the one thing that I knew is that there might be 4 different startups and 4 different ideas. You were the one person behind it, and I think that the passion that you brought at that point of time is still there today. And I'm glad that you're getting those customer reviews as validation of the work that you're doing, because the work that you have ahead is also quite daunting, I would say.
Absolutely. We just scratch the surface.
Give me a one-line description of Beshak, because we probably missed that in our discussion so far. If someone is listening in, what does Beshak do?
So yeah, a one-line description of Beshak is that whenever you're looking for insurance, you are always hit with content or people who have a vested interest in telling you or selling you a product. We've just removed that conflict of interest, right? So we are a platform without any conflict of interest of telling you which product to buy or not buy. In fact, if you go to a platform and put the right details, and if you don't need insurance, our platform will actually tell you that you don't need insurance. Like, I'm going to do a post on this. We just realized that we should have done this a long back. This thing, like for example, if you have enough wealth and you don't have dependents, our platform will actually tell you that you don't need term insurance. And if you have the right product with the right coverage, we will tell you don't need health insurance. You can just stay with what you have, right?
Lovely.
So we've just cut out the vested interest of selling something. You want to focus on advice and you want to focus on helping customers with having a satisfactory, good policy that they can have, like they don't have to worry about it. They can get good sleep in the night.
So now I'm going to take 2 steps back. Very basic question, okay? And I guess that was one of the things that came in our discussion also.
Right.
When we had met back in 2019, the trust deficit, okay? Even then, and I think even now, the customer doesn't trust the insurer doesn't trust the customer.
Absolutely.
Okay. How are things as they stand today?
Right.
Because you've seen this industry for quite long now.
Right.
And a lot of changes have happened, some brought about by the regulator, some brought about by the company, some forced upon, by social media outrage, etc., etc. How do things stand today when it comes to mis-selling?
Right. So the thing is that, see how the industry is operating, right? The industry is completely operating in a manner where the product is created by the manufacturer, but the trust is driven by the distributor, right? So what happens is that when you have a sales-driven industry where the whole focus is sales and not advice to a large extent, there is bound to be mis-selling, right? The whole fundamental of only sales and no advice is that it has to be quick, it has to be fast, it has to be sold, right? And that's where basically a lot of things take a backseat which shouldn't, right? So for example, according to us, insurance should be sold slow, not sold fast, right? But as soon as you're talking about sales, it cannot be slow. Only advice can be slow, right? And that is not something that this industry from the beginning has basically been oriented with. There is a lot of, and I can also blame customers for this, obviously, because whenever I have seen this in my family and friends also, that when you actually sit down and try to explain everything to a customer also, he says that, "Ye sab chhod yaar, tell me where to sign," right? So it's also not that only the industry is to be blamed. Industry probably just followed what the customer wanted. But there was a very good opportunity of probably educating customers about the importance of insurance, why they should buy slow, buy right, and not just go in the flow of what the customer wants ki jaldi kuch bhi bhej do, right? So that, according to me, is the crux of the issue. Selling fast and sales being the focus, and then commissions becoming the focus, and hence the customer of the insurance company, the primary customer of the insurance company not being the customer but being the distributor, right? In itself basically brings in all these problems.
So now let's come to the solution, right? Now there's someone listening in and he says that I'm going to buy health insurance or even a term insurance policy for the very first time.
Right.
What would you tell him or her on how to avoid being missold a policy, to save himself or herself, so to say?
See, the thing is, apart from senior citizens and the vulnerable population, right? The poor folks and people who are, let's say, farmers sitting in a village, large part of the mis-selling that is happening is actually mis-buying, right? People are buying products for the wrong reasons, right? For example, buying products out of emotion. Bacha ho gaya, someone is coming and telling you buy a child plan without understanding the product, you are buying the plan. Tax season aaya, tax le liya. Impulse mein people are buying products. Like, I've just landed in the bank and someone is telling me, hey, this specific fund product has come, and I just lap into it because I like the branch manager. See, that's all wrong reasons to buy a product. The right reason to buy a product would be that you understand, obviously, the basics, that you understand your needs first, understand your goals, and then buy the right product and understand the product also, right? That what are the terms and conditions of the basic broad contours of the product, what are going to be the liquidity norms. People are being impatient about buying products is also a very big problem, and that's what I would call misbuying, right? So if you basically want to solve this, you need to basically not go fast, go slow, understand your problem statements in your life, what you want to solve for, look at the product and whether it matches your needs, and then buy them. A smaller hack and a faster hack, if people are impatient, is to then spend time to find a good financial advisor, right? It could be, in insurance terms, it would be a distributor. In an overall sense, someone whom you can really then, latch on to and depend on that person, that, okay, this person is not going to make a sale to me just for the sake of the sale.
Yeah. What about ChatGPT? Does AI change anything? Can I just go into... I haven't tried it. I don't think I will, because I'm still old school. I prefer a human being for my advice, for insurance. But has AI really changed anything? And let's look at it from both the sides. Okay, from the product manufacturers, from the insurer's side, and from me as a customer side.
Yeah, so it has changed actually, because see, there is the huge volume of products that exist in the insurance industry today, and each product has like close to 8,000, 9,000 words of terms and conditions, right? And then there are underwriting norms, which is basically how a customer is evaluated and who is basically given a product and not given a product, right? Which is called underwriting. All this in itself is quite voluminous, right? Yeah. So if you basically are able to get AI in place, you can, across a wide range of products and across the depth of the product in terms of underwriting, in terms of terms and conditions, learn it much faster. And then also understand the customer's needs and match up the product to the customer's requirements. Right? Okay. So AI definitely is useful where there is a lot of data and dynamic data, right? We use it to a certain extent. We've started just scratching the surface on this with a product called TrueMatch, where whenever you basically enter details on our platform, in 3 minutes, it will tell you exactly what cover you should buy. Nice. It will tell you what kind of product is really matching your needs from a range of around 150 plus products that again are available in the market. Okay. So these things without tech, without AI, would have taken a day, right? And now we are able to do it and give it to a customer in 3 minutes. So these are the real solutions to, solving for probably mis-selling and making it easier also for the customer to find the right product, at the same time not being missold.
Yeah. And just to be clear, when you give that recommendation, you don't earn any money from it.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Because we have no links with insurance companies in terms of any kind of marketing, affiliate activity, any kind of advertisements. We don't basically link our recommendation or research to anything to do with the insurance company.
Yeah. And of course, you also provide access to a pool of advisors, being the platform between the customer and the advisor, and then whatever the advisor and the customer chooses, their call.
Right. So that's the other part of AI, right? Yeah. Meaning which is the natural intelligence, agar mujhko bula sakta hai. So basically, which is where customers need someone. Finally, after you see that report also, you still have a lot of questions and you still want to depend upon an expert before you take a decision. Plus, insurance post-sales is there's a lot of drudgery, a lot of pain in terms of how the whole paperwork happens, how claims happen and all that happen. And you need a really good advisor who can basically be with you, right? Probably there's hardly any job to be done if there is a claim, but who can be with you and say, ke bhai, main hoon, right? And that actually plays a very, very strong role. And we are seeing that as a great, additional feature on our platform, which helps customers, like I keep saying, like get good sleep. Right? Yeah.
Mahavir, now let's get into the action part, the specific issues, so to say, in insurance. First up is, why is insurance so complicated? Okay, product, purchase, claim, surrender, redemption. It seems insurance has a maximum complaints in consumer courts. I think all financial products, I assume, but what's the deal there?
Yeah, so the thing is that, the insurance space is basically, instead of being an unfortunate, this is my belief that it's unfortunate that instead of being an advisory-driven market, is a sales-driven market. As soon as a product or an industry is sales driven, basically, like I said, it basically drives on speed, it drives on commissions, it drives on things probably which are not customer centric, right? So for example, a product needs to be sold faster. So I need to create shorter forms, right? Which probably half of the form will be filled by the advisor. And I'm okay with that as an insurer because I want to sell fast. The other is that if I have to take declarations from the customer, for example, in health insurance, declarations are one of the most important things.
The backbone of your policy.
Is the policy actually, like you rightly said. So if, let's say, the declarations are taken in a hurry, which is how the products are designed or the process is designed, it's going to bite the customer at the time of claims, right? But because the whole process is oriented towards sales, it's done in a fast manner, right? कि जल्दी करो, form भरो, sign करो, right? It's something that you will see when the policy is getting sold. Sir, please come online. Sir, we just have to fill and like click twice and your payment will happen. But nobody sits down and explains
each
as an
clause,
advisor saying that, अरे भाई, time लो, इसको अच्छे से पढ़ो and then sell. The only reason is that the interests are conflicting. The interest of the sales guy is policy issuance to get commission. The interest of the customer is actually claims, right? And that is the where the
Total
conflict
mismatch,
is. And that's why the mis-selling happens. That's why a lot of things happen. The second thing is that because it is sales driven, the center of the universe for insurance industry is the sales guy. Unfortunately, it's not the customer. Like the customer will feel that way, but only when there is a claim or a dispute or a grievance, you will see that it takes a lot of time to you actually to get a resolution. Like you have to find the CEO's email address, right? To be able to get a resolution to a lot of the issues that come in. And that happens because probably the CEO's office is the brightest team in the company and they realize that, okay, this is important. But otherwise, what happens is that typically insurance is a promise by a stranger, like which is sold by a person who trusts you, right? Whom you trust, right? So insurance is basically a promise by a stranger, but sold by a person that you trust, right? When you are buying it from someone you trust, you don't take a lot of efforts to basically understand the product. And that is what insurance companies completely, their fortunes are dependent on that. And hence, everything that they do and they drive, if you see, in my view, and this probably may not be a correct number, but I think 80% of the salaries in an insurance company would basically be attributed to the distribution side, like serving the distribution, right? When that is the case, your energies, your entire efforts, your money is going into helping distribution. Your customer is actually distributor, not the real customer. You are actually a secondary customer. And that's where I see that disconnect. And that's what probably people don't realize. I also took a while to basically get this clear in my head, that why does the insurance space take so much time to solve for reputation management? Like, let's say you have seen 2 days back, there was a journalist news that came in that a journalist has actually got hospitalized. And that person basically, probably that claim is not payable. But it took like around 3-4 days for the specific insurance company to come back and say that, hey, you know what, this reason it's not payable, right? But uske pehle bahut kuch ho gaya. Like the distrust happened. And customers read about it and started saying that sab chor hai, everything is wrong.
So that's what I want to get into specifics out here. You've given the broad overall approach and the concept and what things, how things go wrong. But when it comes to declarations, can you give me maybe 1 or 2 or 3 examples of when I, as a customer, trust my advisor for a product, like you said, is being sold by the insurer? You know, maybe some areas where anyone who's listening to this and is filling up an insurance form should know that this declaration, this is what you reply.
Correct.
2 or 3 examples.
Yeah. So the biggest example is when you're buying a policy for someone else, right? Let's say if you're buying a policy for a parent, right? What happens is that you think in your mind that, okay, you know everything about your father or mother's ailments, medical history, and you just simply casually enter those details, right? There are 2 problems with this. One is that the parent himself or herself is in denial. Like when you ask a parent, they will say that, Papa, aapko abhi kya bimari hai? So they will say that I don't have any bimari. Then you say, what are the medicines that you're saying? So, ek BP ka medicine leta hu aur ek sugar ka medicine leta hu. So it's actually hypertension and diabetes. But this is not informed well, or not the person who's buying the policy for the parent does not really do the diligence to basically probably go through the file, the medical file.
Wouldn't the medical test pick all of this up?
So the thing is that, see, the medical test does not capture everything. Right? So let's say it may capture diabetes, it may capture blood pressure, but probably, let's say, I've seen cases where, let's say, someone had a stomach ache, right? And they failed to inform about that stomach ache during the medical test, and there is no test done to find out if there is a problem with the stomach, right? And this person later on, almost like 8 months later, was diagnosed with stomach cancer.
Wow.
Right. And when the insurance company actually went back and found out, at one point in time there was some test done before the policy was taken, where the person had complained about stomach ache to his doctor.
So that
right?
could be a problem
But
area. Okay.
you did not
ठीक है,
inform
ठीक
because
है.
it did not get captured in the medical checkup, and you did not declare it.
ठीक है.
So no medical checkup is 100%, right?
Sure.
It's not a head-to-toe.
So it's better for you to
medical checkup.
declare upfront whatever has happened.
Yes. So I would say, so there are so many policies, first of all, which do not require a medical checkup today. And then even if they require a medical checkup, they are constrained by the budget that the insurance company has. So they will do only the main vitals. So declarations is a very big important part of how you buy the policy. So lifestyle declarations, for example, weight-related declarations. Declarations around habits, which is like smoking,
That's
drinking.
my favorite, because no medical test is going to capture smoking and drinking, right?
Exactly, yeah. Smoking can be. So if you are buying a term insurance, then there is a test that which basically can capture if you've smoked or not.
Okay.
It's something to do with nicotine.
Okay.
But that test is not done for health insurance.
Sure.
So when it's not done for health insurance, you'll have to inform, like you rightly said.
Yeah. So in general, just declare.
Right?
Yeah.
Like in term insurance, for example, I've seen customers who are told that, sir, आप ये pin code मत डालो, ये pin code डालो, policy मिल जाएगा.
Yeah.
The reason is that insurance companies have basically figured out that which pin codes they want to give a policy for, right? And they've probably blacklisted certain pin codes where they feel the mortality rate is high or the fraud rate is high for whatever reason, right? But the sales guy on the phone will tell you that, sir, आप एक आगे का pin code डाल के check करो policy issue हो रहा है कि नहीं. And the policy gets issued, right? And then later on, during claims, you'll have issues. So these small elements, right? Even occupation, PIN code, lifestyle declarations, and basically medical declarations. These are super important.
Okay. Let's move to information. Now suddenly there's overload.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there was no information on insurance. You trust the advisor for everything. Suddenly there's information everywhere.
Right.
Okay. Whom to trust in this whole thing? We were just talking before the recording about a certain news item that came out.
Correct.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the thing is that what's happening, I think, is that there is a lot of incentive in today's media to go fast with news, right? Be snappy about content, be entertaining about content, and not really look at research, right? Research, I think, is to a certain extent, when I look at such news, finding space on the internet, it clearly looks like research is dead, right, for a lot of media, which is the sad part. And the only way a customer can avoid this and not fall into the traps of basically reading some news is one way is obviously to go to the basics, right, to look at the actual original document, right? For example, if it is a notification by the government, you read the original notification, right? Or if it is basically a policy document and there's something that some influencer is talking about, you actually go and download that policy document or that wording and read that policy wording, right? It requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of even a good amount of effort for you to be able to do it. But if you don't do that, then you will get affected by information that probably comes from really renowned media, and it could be wrong. The other is probably if you're not able to do this, then you find boring but credible practitioners, right? These may not be entertaining practitioners who will basically start with a funny joke or something. They'll probably talk facts, right? But they will give you real information. So you need to basically find people who probably are doing this for years together, right? And they probably do not have the incentive of driving this in a snappy and entertaining fashion, but to educate people. So if you're able to find these educators, which could again be a little bit of effort, that could be a way around it. They will not be in your first search on Instagram or YouTube, probably on the third page, and they'll not be number one, number two. They may not have enough followers, right? But they may actually be the ones who you should be following.
Yeah, folks, insurance is tough, technical to understand, but if you make the effort, it's a very important product in your boutique of financial products. In fact, they are essential. A lot of times when I hear people talk about investments and mutual funds and credit cards, but people don't have any idea about insurance.
Correct.
Whereas life and health are something that's very critical to our lives. Okay, now advice on filing claims, cashless, all this janjat and all that. The toughest part, and we've spoken so many times in our previous episodes also about how, that filing claim is really, it is so important because this happens to you when you are at your most vulnerable and when you're at your most weakest. When you or your loved one is in the hospital, then you're not thinking in the right way.
Correct.
And that is exactly when insurance comes in. It's supposed to help you, but a lot of mistakes happen.
Correct.
So can you just walk us through, I think the question is, how do you ensure that your claim gets passed first?
Right.
We'll get to cashless after that. But
right. So the first part we discussed at length, right, which is declarations. Right?
Let's
If
just
you
have a
do
look
the
at it again,
declarations well, it will definitely ensure that your claims are paid much faster than they get paid. So buying slow again is something that I would say is important, and understanding everything is important so that you don't unnecessarily feel that something is covered which is not covered. So that, according to me, is the basic rule that people should follow. Apart from that, being prepared for the claim. So I look at, meaning it may sound little funny, but look at claims like a sport, right? Meaning there is preparation required, there is a process involved, right? And there is a lot of patience involved. These are the three things that are involved. Preparation is in the form of that you should always have the important documents that are required in a health insurance or a life insurance available with you and your family, right? In your phone. It could be a simple folder on a drive, and it should be available, right? So preparing for that, like for example, in a cashless, the Aadhaar card of the policy holder and the Aadhaar card of the
nominee
of the patient is required.
Okay.
Probably the PAN card is also required of the policy holder. So having these documents handy with you in all the family members folders, or one folder which is shared with everybody, can really be a part of the preparation. Knowing where the policy is kept, it's such a simple thing.
Forget all of
but
that.
Kitne log I know that they've had death claims in their family, and they're not able to find the policy documents, and they don't even know which are the policies that the person bought, right? So that's one very, very important thing, which is part of preparation. The second is process, right? Understanding the process. So every insurance company will put out a proper checklist in their policy document, which will tell you exactly the documents that you're supposed to provide. Reading that checklist will almost solve 80%, 90% of your problems if you understand that and then create papers based on that process that has been defined there. Most of the times what happens is that we go by our own guesswork, and we just take all the papers that the hospital has given us, put it in a file, and try to give it to the insurance company, ke ye lo abhi pay karo.
Correct, yeah.
And then the insurance company will keep asking you documents, right, which are actually part of the checklist anyways. So doing that is important. Communication in the process is also very important. There is a lot of human element today also in claims. It's not like a mutual fund redemption, right? Like click kiya to
online,
paise 3 din mein aa gaya. It's going to take time, and there is a human sitting somewhere who's actually evaluating your claim. So that's why being responsive and following up is a part of the overall process. You need to be little, you need to take efforts to do that. You could use a lot of tools to do it faster, but you will have to do that.
An advisor usually does this
exactly.
for us?
Yeah. So if you have a good advisor, that solves all this problem. They will keep the record. So I know so many good advisors who have created, it will be very surprising to a lot of viewers here, is that they have created an app with a login so that the customer can, even at the night at 2 p.m, just log in on that app and download their policy documents.
Wow.
Right? And then some of them have created organized folders in their phone so that even if they're on a holiday, they can send policy documents, because they know this is a very standard question or the requirement that customers reach out at any time of the day.
Cashless?
So, cashless ke liye the process is simpler, meaning actually if you again follow the process, right, the problem actually exists on the coordination that happens between the hospital and the insurance company, where there are a lot of inefficiencies actually. The paperwork and the exchange of paperwork and the processes that are followed are not using the best of technology that actually is available. It's using scanned documents and uploading those scanned documents, and then someone at the other side being a human, this side being a human, trying to solve for it. The key things that you can do as a user of an insurance policy is that, like I said, have all the documents that are basically required to administer that policy, or basically register the policy or the claim with the insurance company. The other is follow the steps mentioned in the policy document, and keep a watch on what are the requirements that are coming from the insurance company. Right? So it is like you are typically watching and keeping a very tight eye on what is happening between the insurance company and the hospital, and ensuring that you basically nudge both of them. Very unfortunate, but
it is the process.
In case of planned hospitalizations, what you could actually do is that a day or two in advance, you can go and get all this work done.
Correct.
Right?
Okay.
So insurers allow that in case of, and in fact they encourage this, right? That if you basically come 3-4 days in advance and do this, they have a better heads up on basically being able to do investigations or whatever. And it also is something where they are able to avoid a lot of mischief, frauds that could happen when it's a pre-planned intimation. So going to the hospital 2 days before the actual admission, getting all the paperwork done, getting the approval done is always going to be better than doing it on that day.
Okay, last question is a tweet that you did, I think yesterday or day before, about the whole checklist thing. You've got this nice whiteboard on which you made a nice list. So let's bring everything together, pull everything together into how to choose a good policy. I think that's what your tweet was. Right? You have a very nice list of things which you tick off. So let's go for that. I think start with health and then go to life.
Sure.
Go for it.
Sure. So in case of health insurance, the most important thing, like there are the checklist that I spoke about was having around 11 items.
Okay.
And this came from actually a conversation where someone in a forum told me that how do you evaluate a policy? So I started writing it on the board and then I took a picture of that.
And you tweeted it. So if anyone who's listening to this wants to know what that checklist is, twitter.com or x.com as it's called now. The Mahavir, and that entire list is out there. Mahavir is going to talk about it, but please go and check out his Twitter feed and you'll get that exact photo there. Please go ahead.
So in health insurance, there are total 11 things that you should look at. The first thing basically is coverage, right? It's the most important thing. And without looking at coverage, you should not look at anything else, right? Because a health insurance policy can be modified. A health insurance policy can be changed by an insurance company, but they cannot take away your coverage. The liability cannot be taken away. So, for example, if you have a 10 lakh cover, they cannot tomorrow come and say that now it will have a 8 lakh cover, right? So that 10 lakh is something that you hold, right? Doing a right calculation of that cover is very important. So you should not basically buy for your current age. You should basically buy for your old age. Right. So typically someone who's looking at this video, if he's 30 years old or she's 30 years old, and they should not be buying it for today. Like today, 5 lakhs looks great, right? But you should actually probably put a 8%, 6% inflation, basically because you're doing it over 30 years, and then calculate how much cover you'll need at, let's say, 60. Right. So usually ballpark, it will come to around 15 lakhs per adult.
Okay.
Right. So that is what you should buy. So typically if there are 2 adults, 2 children, you should at least have a 30 lakh cover.
Okay.
Right. That is the first thing. The second is basically looking at all financial limits in the policy. The most important financial limit in a policy is called a room rent limit. Right. A room rent limit can actually completely dilute your policy if you have a very stringent cap on your policy. Because what happens is that when you have a room rent cap, all the other expenses are also proportionately deducted based on that, right? So let's say if I have a private room cap and because of, let's say during COVID, this happened that private rooms are not available and you had to take deluxe room or even higher rooms, then the insurance company will look at the difference between that room and the cost of the two and then proportionally deduct the entire claim by that amount. So if the difference is 50%, then your claim will be deducted by 50%. So it becomes very important. The third is basically treatment caps. So insurance companies can have caps on treatment related, like for example, there could be a cap on how much you can charge, how much you can claim for cataract or how much you can claim for cancer. So you should understand that.
Okay.
Right. Fourth is copay. Copay is basically where insurance companies are saying that you will share a certain amount of the claim from your pocket. So every time there is a claim, you will have to share a certain amount of money from your pocket.
So those I think are the first 3 which are really important. Coverage, copay, room rent. Okay. So the rest, generally what would it be?
So basically financial limits is what you should understand. All the different kind of financial limits is what we have listed between 2 and let's say 9.
Okay.
Right? 10th is basically talking about finding the right insurance company which has a great track record. Right? This is actually a reverse check. The reverse check is basically finding out if there is a specific insurance company that you're hearing which does not have a great track record with claims. Avoid those insurance companies.
Okay.
And then every other insurance company you could look at.
Sure.
This keeps changing, I know, but there are some players which are very known right now, which obviously I cannot name, but for having not a great claims experience. Okay. The last one is the one which we've spoken at length earlier also is an advisor, right? Having a good advisor, probably in your neighborhood if you can find, who has a record of helping customers with claims, who owns the claims experience. If you find someone like that, that is almost, I would give 40% of the weightage to all these 11 points, right? Because he will ensure that everything else, he is looking into it because now he is responsible for the claim. So that is a very important hack and the 11th point of the total checklist.
I'm guessing for term also an advisor is there. So outside of advisor, any points out there?
Term like I said, coverage is very important. Apart from coverage, the duration, right, is super important. That how much duration you take. In terms of a lot of people feel that I should take a higher duration, largely because they think that at least, let's say if I buy till 60, I'm not going to die till 60, which is what everybody thinks. But let me take it till 80 because surely जैसा मैं जी रहा हूँ, I will not live till 80, so something my family will get.
Yeah.
But they're not realizing the time value of money calculation of that. Okay, between 60 and 80, uska aise bhi kuch, there is no great value of that money that you're going to get, your family is going to get.
Yeah.
In fact, they will only curse you that itna chota amount deke gaya. So the point is that look at term insurance as a problem statement, solving a problem statement, which is for early death, not for 60 ke baad ka death. Right? That is second. One thing which people miss in term insurance is basically customizing the claim payout, right? Claim payouts can be customized. A lot of mis-selling that we spoke about also happens because a large money drops into the bank account of someone who does not understand finance.
Correct.
कि suddenly my wife is getting 3 crores in a bank account, banker को पता चल जाता है, banker phone करके does his thing or her thing. So how do you avoid this? And I've even heard very, very senior folks who are themselves finance professionals, but their wives are not, the partners are not, right? In those cases, what you can do is that you can create a customized claim payout option where you can say that money should be broken and given every month or every year.
That's possible?
Yes,
very
absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can basically divide the money into 1% and basically get paid in 100 months.
Interesting.
Right? So that's what you can
speak
basically
to an insurer or advisor for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mahavir, we are done with our episode. Our last standard question to all our guests: what book are you reading, and any recommendations for our listeners?
Right. So I'm basically currently reading a book called Alchemy, which is by Rory Sutherland. I usually have learned this thing that typically don't find new books, probably reread books that have probably a lot of depth in them, and probably when you read them again, you learn more from the same book. So that's what I follow. So,
I haven't heard about this. What's the book about?
So it's basically talking about something called psychologic, which is basically saying that the world today functions on a lot of logic, but the disruptions that have happened because of things which probably did not look logical.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So it is basically he's the founder or one of the founders of Ogilvy, who's written this book, and it basically gives you a lot of direction into thinking beyond logic and solving probably problems based on looking at stuff that not everything gets solved only by pure human logic.
Very interesting. The book is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. And that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, returning guest, one of our favorites, one of the guests with whom this podcast started in the dialogue format, Mahavir Chopra, founder, CEO of Beshak. Mahavir, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Hey, thank you so much, Anupam, for having me here.
Thank you.
IVM